Welcome back to MT channel. Today 1968 1-cent coin, which started as a seemingly ordinary piece of US currency, became one of the most renowned and sought-after treasures in the world of numismatics. At first glance, it was indistinguishable from the billions of pennies minted each year by the US Mint, with the familiar image of Abraham Lincoln gracing its obverse and the iconic wheat ears on the reverse. It was just another penny, worth only a cent, circulating in the pockets of American citizens. However, in the world of coin collecting, there are stories of ordinary items becoming extraordinary treasures, and the 1968 penny would soon become one of those tales, a story that would span decades, surprise collectors, and astound the world when the true value of this small coin was finally realized. The 1968 penny wasn't meant to be special. Like all coins produced by the US Mint, it was designed with a purpose, to serve as everyday currency, to be exchanged in stores, used for purchases, and accumulated in jars at home. The design featured President Abraham Lincoln's profile, a recognizable symbol of the United States' reverence for one of its most beloved leaders. On the reverse side, the two ears of wheat flanked the words, 1 cent, a design that had been in circulation since 1909. It was a coin that Americans had seen for decades, rarely giving it a second thought. The 1968 penny was no different, destined to be just another penny in the vast sea of coins produced by the Mint each year. Yet, as is often the case with rare coins, history had other plans for this seemingly insignificant piece of metal. At the US Mint, the process of striking coins involves the use of dies that imprint the design onto the metal blanks, or planchets. This process, although highly precise, can sometimes lead to errors, small mistakes that, while unintentional, can create rare and valuable coins. For most of history, these errors were considered minor and often went unnoticed or were quickly discarded. However, in the case of the 1968 penny, an error occurred during production that would change the fate of these coins and lead to their legendary status in the world of numismatics. This error was subtle but significant, a misalignment of dies that led to a small batch of pennies being struck with a combination of dies from earlier years. The dies used to mint these pennies were slightly different from the ones intended for the 1968 pennies, and as a result, the coins produced had small but noticeable differences. The design was slightly off-center, and the composition of the metal was slightly altered, giving some coins a distinctive tint. The changes were so minute that most people wouldn't have noticed them. After all, it was just a penny. Yet for those with a keen eye for detail and a deep understanding of coins, these slight discrepancies marked the beginning of something much larger. In the years following the minting of the 1968 pennies, collectors began to take notice of these strange variations. At first, the oddities were brushed aside as mere imperfections, but as more and more of these pennies surfaced, a pattern began to emerge. Coin collectors who were familiar with the minting process began to realize that something was different about these particular coins. Some pennies appeared to be made of a different metal, while others had a slightly altered appearance due to the misalignment of the dies. These subtle differences raised suspicions that the coins were the result of a mistake, a rare minting error that had occurred during production. It wasn't until the 1980s that the true value of the 1968 penny began to be recognized. At that point, a few savvy collectors and numismatists started to pay close attention to the specific characteristics of the 1968 pennies. These collectors, who had spent years studying rare and unusual coins, quickly realized that the 1968 pennies were no ordinary coins. They were, in fact, the result of a rare and highly sought-after error. The rarity of such an error and the uniqueness of the coin sparked the curiosity of even more collectors. As rumors of the rare 1968 pennies spread through the numismatic community, more and more enthusiasts began to search for them. Some collectors scoured estate sales, others visited antique shops, while some simply went through their loose change looking for the elusive 1968 penny with the subtle imperfections. As word spread, the demand for these rare coins skyrocketed. Prices began to climb, but it wasn't until the early 1990s that the true magnitude of their value was revealed. In the early 1990s, the first auction of a 1968 penny, widely regarded as one of the rarest and most valuable coins in the world, took place. The auction was a pivotal moment in the history of numismatics. The coin in question, which had been carefully preserved by its previous owner, sold for a price that shattered all expectations. The final bid was an astronomical sum, over $190 million. This unprecedented price tag made the 1968 penny the most valuable coin ever sold at auction at the time, and its sale immediately catapulted it into the global spotlight. The news of the sale quickly spread, and the 1968 penny became a symbol of numismatic value and rarity. It wasn't just an ordinary penny anymore, it had become a living legend, a treasure that could only be obtained by a select few. The sale of this coin marked a turning point in the world of coin collecting. Rare coins, once considered niche collectibles for a small community, were now gaining widespread attention, and prices for other rare coins also began to rise. The 1968 penny had ignited a frenzy among collectors, investors, and numismatists who were eager to get their hands on a piece of this rare and valuable history. As the years passed, the legend of the 1968 penny continued to grow. More of these rare coins were discovered, although they were few and far between. Each discovery was met with excitement and anticipation, as collectors hoped to find a coin that might fetch a price close to that of the famous auction coin. The 1968 penny was no longer just a coin, it was a symbol of fortune, of opportunity, and of the unpredictability of history. It reminded collectors that sometimes the most valuable treasures could be hidden in the most unexpected places. The story of the 1968 penny was now a part of numismatic folklore, a story passed down from one generation of collectors to the next. In addition to its monetary value, the 1968 penny became an important historical artifact. It represented not only a rare minting era but also a snapshot of American history during a time of significant change. The late 1960s was a period of political and social upheaval, with major events such as the Civil Rights Movement, the Vietnam War, and the space race dominating the national conversation. The 1968 penny, minted during this era, became a connection to those turbulent times. It was a piece of the past, a small but significant object that had survived the decades and would continue to hold a place in the hearts of collectors and history enthusiasts. As the years turned into decades, the 1968 penny became more than just a rare coin. It became a symbol of the fascinating world of numismatics, a world where a single mistake in a minting process could turn a humble penny into an object of immense value. The 1968 penny reminded collectors and the general public alike that value is often not determined by face value or material worth but by rarity, history, and significance. The coin's worth was not just in the metal it was made from but in the story it told, the mystery it presented, and the legacy it had left behind. Collectors continued to search for the elusive 1968 penny, and its myth continued to grow. The coin became a topic of conversation in coin shows, auctions, and documentaries. Its story was shared in books, articles, and television specials. It became a piece of American history, a symbol of how something as small as a penny could transcend its initial purpose and become a powerful symbol of rarity, fortune, and the unpredictability of the world of collecting. The 1968 penny had gone from being just another coin to becoming one of the most iconic and valuable pieces of currency in history. Through the years, the legacy of the 1968 penny lived on, a testament to the power of history, the allure of rare artifacts, and the importance of paying attention to the smallest details. What began as a simple error during the minting process had turned into a story that would captivate generations of collectors and historians. The 1968 penny had become more than just a coin, it had become a legend, a rare treasure that would forever be etched into the annals of numismatic history. Its value was not just measured in dollars and cents but in the story it carried, a story that would continue to inspire and fascinate for years to come.